Bill Cork is with us, Executive Director, Mississippi Development Authority. Good morning, Bill. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Paul. Great to be with you again.
Thank you for coming in. Look, this is just the opening quick shot here. And I don't understand how we still are finding these things. I don't know if you've heard this, but marine scientists have discovered the world's largest deep sea coral reef right off Florida, not that far from us. It's brimming with new mysterious species. The reef is roughly 158 miles long, size of Vermont. It's nicknamed the Million Mounds since it's mostly made up of stony coral. 6.4 million acre discovery between 656 feet and 3,280 feet. And we've just discovered that.
Fascinating. You know, Mississippi is a global leader in the blue economy and ocean science. We have a huge cluster on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I'm sure this is going to be an exciting discovery and probably an opportunity for our researchers to learn more about the blue economy in our neighborhood.
Use some of those underwater drones that we are perfecting.
Indeed.
I think we just made a sale.
I think so.
Special session next week.
They asked me yesterday, Paul, if we were going to do this again next week, and I said, I don't think I have another one in me, but maybe in 2 weeks we'll try again. Absolutely
amazing. I don't want to throw you a curve on this one, but this one's bugging me, and I got to ask you. Yesterday, Senator Josh Hawley, who I love the guy, he's from Missouri, well-spoken, but he was calling on President Biden to keep a Missouri aluminum plant open after it was reported that its operation would be curtailed by January 28th of this month. Hawley issued a statement on X. After reports that Magnitude 7 Metals, the second largest U.S. aluminum smelter, is going to lay off most of its staff. Is that in any way connected to the plant we got coming up here?
No, I don't think it is, Paul. I don't know all of their supply chain issues for Aluminum Dynamics, but I do know that they're very vertically integrated, and so they have their own operations in Mexico for the development of scrap into ingots to bring that in and process it here, as well as other scrap that they're doing here. So I think they have a pretty solid, vertically integrated supply chain. Pretty sophisticated customers over there.
Just give us some insight that we haven't heard before, just because you can tell us more now than we have known before, certainly the who's doing this as far as Amazon is concerned. But a little bit about the inside baseball on this one, how this happened, how long it took, and were there any hitches in the giddy-up from the special session?
Paul, this project really first came to being about over 5 years ago. The company had done a multi-site competition in the state of Mississippi and looked at a variety of areas. Of course, they're chasing power and fiber. Those are the two things that are really critical to this. And it just wasn't Mississippi's time at that point. Both in the evolution of the company and where it was headed, but also in just what Mississippi's infrastructure could offer. But the relationships remained very, very strong, and there's some strong personal connections between Roger Wiener, who's their senior officer at AWS that deals with economic development and site selection. Ed Gardner, the lead economic developer at Entergy, used to work together back in their old Alabama Power days. There's a lot of very tight personal connections. The site selection consultant that assisted Amazon Web Services, a company called Vision First. The CEO of that company is Gray Swope. He used to be the executive director of the Mississippi Development Authority.
Wow.
There are just and Joey Deason up in Madison County used to work at MDA and knows Gray very well. This is a business where relationships really, really matter, and we had I think a competitive advantage on relationships. But in any event, Paul, what really happened to bring this project together was that we are at the crossroads of two massive backbones of dark fiber optic cables, a pipeline that runs from Chicago to New Orleans on a north-south route, and a pipeline that runs from Dallas to Atlanta and then up into Virginia, connecting the intercontinental backbone of the Internet.
How long? And dark fiber described as or explained as what? Fiber unused?
Think about it from a retail and a wholesale standpoint, Paul. So you've got fiber connected to your house, probably where your studio's at right there, and that's the retail end. You get a single strand of fiber. This dark fiber, giant cables full of millions of fiber optic cables that haul the traffic across across the continent and across the world. And we've got 2 of those now that came to being about 18 months ago that crisscross right in the center of Jackson, Mississippi. And so you take that redundant fiber, transcontinental fiber, and you add a power capacity that Entergy has, and you are at the intersection of some of the most promising internet superhighway capabilities that are anywhere in the Deep South. So this is, as the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor spoke over the last couple of days, this is not an accident. We have been working hard at this, but it's also the private sector investing capital that most of us are hidden underground. We don't even see that's been evolving over the last few years.
Is what they're selling, as far as Amazon, to use in their own business or to wholesale out or retail out data? Or a combination of both?
Well, most people think of the cloud as a place where you store your cat pictures, or where you host software that you might use for your QuickBooks at home, or download Adobe Acrobat, and that's the cloud. And this is cloud computing. But these supercomputing centers that are going to be built here are going to be the backbone of Amazon's artificial intelligence and machine learning environment. We're not going to be storing cat pictures on these servers and storage devices. And what this does for Mississippi in terms of transforming us as a hub of the AI ML revolution, it just can't be understated. I mean, we're talking to folks like at UMMC who are trying to get into the business of doing massive data processing for algorithms to solve cures for cancer, or sequencing the human genome, or dealing with massive defense or energy needs. These are amazing things that we're going to be able to do right here in the Jackson area. And so just think about all the potential co-location that could come with this for national laboratory capabilities and cancer research and this kind of thing. So we don't even know. I'm not even smart enough to figure out all the things that can be done with this. Yeah. But just if you can imagine it done with computing power, it can be done right here in the Jackson metro area.
When we first started getting used to the word AI and talking about AI, and I think somebody said it's everything we ever knew about the world all together, and every bit of that information is in one source. And you think about that, it's just too hard to grasp. I mean, but everything that's ever been written or ever been computed, it is all in a database somewhere, and one can talk to the other to find out what is true, what is not true, what has worked, what is not working, etc. It's amazing.
It's really quite remarkable, and when I started working with the company and the communities on this project about a year ago, I'm like, I got to figure out like coding and what all this means. I mean, I bought a book on Python and Java, and I started reading it just to try to get an understanding. And once you crack open the surface of this, and you start to figure out exactly all the capabilities that this promising technology and the adjacent software, it's going to happen in Jackson Metro, Mississippi. Think about that, Paul. I mean, the world is going to be noticing this. And by the way, they were noticing yesterday. We had lobbyists crawling around the Capitol yesterday from all the major companies in cloud computing, watching what we're doing here. It's pretty remarkable.
I did the same thing yesterday, and I mentioned this a little earlier. Went to YouTube and just looking, Googled up inside the Amazon database plants. And the security is unbelievable. The requirements for redundancy and for cooling, et cetera, all of that is absolutely amazing. But it's a world that we're not used to, and you just got to do a little study on it.
It's right, Paul, and we shouldn't be afraid of the future. We had the conversation last week about battery technology and where that's going, and now we're going to be talking about massive compute power and data storage and processing, and we lean into this stuff these days in Mississippi, and we're proud of that. When I was walking around the Capitol yesterday, Paul, and we were getting close to seeing this bill passage done by the great work of the legislature. I've been in that Capitol a lot over the last 3 years. I have never seen people stand so tall and have so many smiles on their face and just proud of Mississippi. We get beat down in the national media, and we're always on the bottoms of all these lists. Not anymore, Paul. It's changing. There's something special going on here.
And Bill, it makes us appreciate it because being a guy who's been in the state all his life, You're right, man. We take it on the chin a lot. People talking about they're proud of California and Colorado and all of these different places. Texas, puffing their chest out every other moment. And we need that feeling. We need to understand where we are. And for somebody who's makes a living off of being anti-Mississippi and writing things that are negative, they just need to every once in a while understand that, like a father giving his son just a pat on the back every once in a while, it's needed and it's due. More DIC. I had to play Grace Swoop. He spent a lot of time in the studio, and you said he's where now?
He runs a company called Vision First. He's which is a consulting advisory firm. He's living down in Florida with his beautiful wife Mary, and they're living the dream.
How about that? It's good to hear his name again. I saw one story because you had mentioned, a lot of other people had mentioned, this is just the beginning in this particular venue as far as data and that associated business. And I looked at some other places that had data plants there, and you are right, they've added on to that. So what do you think is next as far as the Jackson-Madison locations, I should say?
Well, Paul, we don't want to get too deep into the company's expansion plans. That's their story to tell. But I will tell you this: the entire deal and the agreements that we've cut with this company fully contemplate a massive long-term expansion program. The incentive package that we put together and the support that we've provided the company allows them to do and replicate this model anywhere in the state of Mississippi they want to, where most of our major economic impact projects are tied to a specific location, such as the aluminum dynamics plant in Columbus or Marshall County, for the battery plant. Those are spelled out in law. In this law, it says you can do this anywhere in Mississippi. So, as long as they can find the right conditions, we also have a line item of incentives in the program for site development to assist local communities if this company decides to go to that community. By the way, this company is fierce, aggressive, incredibly sophisticated. And when they parachute into a community, they expect the community to be able to match their response because it's speed, risk, and money, Paul. And so we've put some money aside in this program to allow us to help those communities scale their resources to match the company's resources so we don't miss any opportunities. So there's growth plans in the works.
Just like every time the ring goes off on your camera on the door with another package delivered, one way or the other, they are financially solvent. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Bill Cork, Executive Director, Mississippi Development Authority. Looking at the scope of other things in this legislative session that we're working on, above and beyond this one. And by the way, don't leave this yet. How long do you think it's going to have before they start breaking ground?
It started already, Paul.
Oh, is that right?
They've already been paying Madison County to do the site preparation, clearing. Pads are ready to go. You're going to start going vertical in about 2 weeks. So
is this east of the bottling company as far as the mega center?
Yeah, well, it's right there. You've got the Clark bottling and distribution, and then you've got the Amazon retail distribution center. They basically bought all the other real estate in the park. So,
is there anything to the east of that before you get to the interstate that's left in that mega site?
The mega site is pretty much tapped out. There's still some room to grow out there. I think Joey's actually looking for his next major tranche of real estate to purchase to start another mega site in Madison County. But the company's going to buy all the remaining land that's there and cover that up in data centers. And then the Costa site, which is just north of County Line Road, west of Tougaloo College, is about another 700 or 800 acres, I think. And they're going to start working on that soon.
Who are we talking about as far as getting a job there? Is it? I mean, I guess I'm asking what type of expertise, and you may not even know this, but I know there's going to have to be some top brains there just to connect all this stuff together. But is the daily job just the maintenance on individuals' computer akin to somebody at Best Buy, or do you have any idea what is the expertise needed there?
Well, I'm not an expert on all the individual talent streams, but here's what I know kind of generally. And Amazon's done a great press release on this on their website, and it goes through all the details of what they're going to do to support the training and the types of jobs. But a quick highlight of this would include things like fiber optics technicians that connect the fiber to all these equipment. You got to splice these things and split them. So there's it's kind of like the new wires, the glass fibers. You're going to have electricians. These things are all powered. You're going to have backup generators that have to be exercised. So there's a whole electrical, kind of almost like an electrician technology kind of scheme. You're going to have server technicians that are and storage device folks that are going to go in and swap out servers and build out these racks and make sure they're all working. You're going to have water, sewer, and cooling tower operators, because these things have giant HVAC systems to keep them cool. And you're going to have security. I mean, these things are going to be like Fort Knox. I mean, can you imagine? Yeah. So you're going to have everything from the security guard and the maintenance people on the facilities to all these technicians. And then at the very high level, you're going to have folks that can do coding and programming and, all the things that have to do with the computer engineering in the facility, which will be the higher skilled jobs. Yeah. So it's just an amazing array of high-tech jobs.
One of the things I heard yesterday when I was doing some research on this one is, even if you're one of their biggest buyers of the cloud, a major company, the one place you'll not be allowed is within the database there. You can go in the front office and have tea, I guess, but you can't get where the restricted area is.
We asked very early on if we could tour one of their data centers to just get a sense of what we were buying, and they said no. You can't.
That was it.
So that was pretty much it. And that's where we're going to leave it.
You mentioned, and I love the way you said, we have some rock stars in the business of selling the state, and one is Joe Max over there, and Joe Max is as well as Joey and others, but Joe Max is constantly out for more land, and who knows what the next thing is there.
He's working on his Cinco megasite. That's his fourth megasite. He's a character, as you know. I got to tell you, Joe Max, it does not like to lose. Okay, this is a winner. His license plate on his truck says 2 = last. I mean, this guy is all in for winning. When this $10 billion project got announced over here, I could just imagine he was certainly happy on the surface, but he's like, I got to go beat this now. So we've got a fierce competitor over there.
You and I know he went out and didn't sleep 3 nights and had Maalox on the list for lunch. That was it. But,
Joey Deason used to work for Joe Max, and they are very good personal friends, and Joey's a protege of Joe Max, and I know there's a lot of love there and pride in seeing one of his spawn do real well.
Again, just to touch on the Mississippi Delta, where you talk fiber coming across, there was a read, everything is coming, there was a need. The other thing I wanted, you made the perfect pitch and sale. You may not even known this, because a lot of times when we have these different things that the MEC's Capital Day and stuff like that, we always talk about the importance of networking. I think you just proved the importance of networking. We're talking about Grace Swoop and some others who had relationships there. So networking does pay off, knowing people.
People aren't going to invest $10 billion in people they don't know and trust, Paul. I mean, it's just the way the world works, and you can call it the good old boy network if you want to, but I don't think you would invest $10 billion of your money in somebody you didn't know or trust. So I think it's just that's just common sense.
Well, and Amazon is not a stranger here. With the plant, they've kind of gotten their feet wet and no Mississippians, so that's good news too.
Well, Amazon's already spent $2.3 billion in the state between their distribution centers and fulfillment centers. Do you know, Paul, that wind farm they announced up in Tunica, they bought the power from that. That's an Amazon essentially wind farm. They're already invested in solar here. They now we've got this additional $10 billion investment. Amazon, as a major corporate entity, has been engaged in Mississippi's development now for many years, and while they haven't gotten a lot of headlines for it, this is just a continued investment in some place they already feel they're getting a high return.
Bill Cork, who's executive director of the Mississippi Development Authority. Bill, are we overemphasizing the work relationship and hostility of what's going on up north, making more and more people want to come south, or is that a real thing?
Well, I'm originally from Illinois, Paul. If that gives you any indication.
Yeah.
I migrated south. I mean, look, I try to make it a point not to talk bad about other states because I don't want them talking bad about me. But, businesses are just tired of the high tax, high regulatory environment. Individuals are the same way. I mean, I've got family members migrating to the south because of just these onerous burdens and the super regulations and it's real. I mean, this migration to the south is a real thing, and people do it for different reasons. But the reality is, these high tax, high cost of living states are, especially since in many wage categories, especially the bottom two quintiles, it hasn't kept up. And an affordable place like Mississippi is a haven for people who want to have a real quality of life and not be stretched payday to payday.
I'm sorry. I just had a terrible thought, and we'll continue it when we come back for the final segment. That thought was, maybe Joe Biden's one of the best things that happened for Mississippi.
Oh, gosh,
I don't want to think that. I'm sorry. Mea culpa. Mea maxima culpa. Back in a moment, final segment with Bill Cork, Executive Director, Mississippi Development Authority. By the way, Ron Eller's coming on in the next segment. We're going to talk to him. He's running against Benny Thompson as a Republican. I was going to touch base as far as the Delta is concerned. For years and years, decades, we've tried to do these things like Chamber of Commerce or governmental consortiums for the Delta. Maybe there's power in numbers, putting together maybe Shelby County in Tennessee and Lee County, Phillips County in Arkansas, Tunica, Coahoma County, and it's just never produced anything. Is that something that's still being tried, or is there anything thinking out of the box as far as the Delta is concerned?
I think there's a lot of human capital resources focused on the Delta, Paul. I don't think that's I don't think there's a lack of talent and a lack of resources looking at the Delta. I think what we struggle with is it's rural agricultural America, and I've worked in rural America my whole career, and this is a constant refrain everywhere in rural America. We want to see things develop. I mean, I grew up in the middle of a cornfield with a population of 2,500 near me, and it takes a long time for those populations to transition when you've gone from basically a heavily family farmed kind of environment to a corporate agricultural model, and then you've seen the population outmigration, which hasn't started recently. It's been ongoing really since Reconstruction. So we've seen a long history of this, and I think what it's going to take, and I mentioned this to some of the senators who were asking about this yesterday, is we have to be able to reestablish a revenue base in the Delta. And one of the things that's great about this project is that these data centers are going to be powered by the Mississippi Delta. The backbone of the transmission infrastructure runs right through the heart of the Delta. And so connecting the solar panels and gas plants and other things that are going to power these data centers are going to produce massive investment in the Mississippi Delta. In fact, the CEO of Entergy Mississippi indicated yesterday for the first time publicly that their plan is to invest between $2 and $3 billion in power equipment to support this effort. That's not included in the $10 billion we talked about. What does that do for the Delta? Well, it takes some of these communities which are revenue constrained and gives them the property tax from these power operations that will begin to lift and elevate the revenues. With those revenues, those communities can then begin to rebuild their community infrastructure. With that additional community infrastructure, then you can layer on the social infrastructure and help to be able to begin the community development process to attract residents back to the Delta. And I think that's part of the remedy. That's a long slog, Paul. It's not going to happen overnight. But these are the kind of transformational projects that can happen in the state that can lead to this additional ancillary development that will lift all the boats up. And so I urge the Delta, you've got great talent there. Organize it. Get your capital plans in place. Be ready to receive this infrastructure and these grants. And let's start on a path together to help rebuild this amazing infrastructure in the Delta.
Good advice, Bill. Anything else in this legislative session as far as bills that you're watching?
Look, I mean, at MDA, I'll put a plug in for our site development grant program. The last couple of years, the governor has asked in his executive budget to do a $100 million investment in site development. If what we're seeing between Marshall County and Madison County isn't evidence that that program works, I don't know what does. So I would just urge Mississippians to say, if you want to see this kind of thing happen, the best thing we can do is invest in our sites and our infrastructure, support the site development grant program in the governor's budget request this year.
We got to be totally opposite what we do, because many years ago we were doing industrial parks, and nobody was moving into them. And I've often joked about this. A new mayor, our guy who's running for mayor, would always say, "I'm going to build a new industrial park," and it made everybody feel good, because you would think the business is going to come. And then we had probably more unused, open, dilapidated industrial parks or non-developed industrial parks. But here's where we need megasites to build factories. And so the time is right for that. You're absolutely right. Anything else, sir?
No, Paul, I just really appreciate the opportunity. I hadn't been on your show in the 8 years I've been in Mississippi. I've been on twice in 8 days, and I think if we keep doing this, people are going to talk, Paul. Well,
here's the deal. I said also that your schedule for next week on Thursday, or just whatever, I'll check the governor's press conference, but we got you booked for Thursday, so don't disappoint us.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, Paul.
Thank you, sir. Take a deep breath, and well-deserved. And, yes, we are proud of our state of Mississippi. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it, sir.